Okay, hello, I'm Matt, and I'm here with part 3 of our series of web tutorials or YouTube tutorials on designing a web page with HTML. Now, it turns out that our page actually was valid. It just turns out that, well, I was using the wrong file. I uploaded the wrong file. It was a different file, but with a similar file name. So you always want to be careful of stupid mistakes like that. So since our document has passed, we can now truthfully copy and paste the code into our web page, saying that we have valid HTML equals 0. Save that, and if we go back to our original web page, ta-da, it's there. And the little code that I added is so it wouldn't have a blue border around it for a link. Now, since we're all done with that, all good and done, set with everything that we need to do, we can now focus on tables. Tables. One of the most important parts of web pages most of the time. Because sometimes most web pages are made entirely of tables. The whole design depends on tables. And so, tables, use the table tag. Hooray! And so, /table. And so, making tables in HTML is a little strange, but you'll get used to it. So, for every row that you have in your table, you use the tag TR, and so it symbolizes a table row. And then for a table column or a table cell, you use TD. And so let's make a table that's two columns by 2 rows. TR TD /TD TD /TD TR /TR TR. Alright. And if we save that, voila, there's a table there. You can't see it yet though, because we don't really have a border. And so of course we can use all sorts of styling tags and all that stuff. But let's put in the text. Hello world, and we can go, hello, how are you today? And then, I'm fine. I was just constructing a table using HTML. That's awesome. And so if we save our web page and go to our test web page, you see, ta-da! You can see that's in a table. And that's also what web pages use for columns and all that stuff. And so you see that there's no border, and that the rows, the columns are only as wide as the table is the rows and the columns in the table is only as wide as the text is, and it will be only as tall as the text is. And so, say you wanted a table that was a certain width, you'd use the attribute width, which also digs into CSS and styling. And so let's say we want a table that was 75% of the screen width, because we really don't like tables that are fixed widths. So you see that this is now 75%, and if I change the width of my browser window, it will be 75%. And it will stay constant. But say I wanted 750 px, which px stands for pixels, and we'd refresh that. And so notice how it's fixed, and that it doesn't really move at all no matter what you do. And so that's the glory of defining table widths. And so, like Eric S. Raymond says on one of his web pages, it's terrible to have fixed width web pages. So you always want to use percentages, because you know, say there are people who are visiting your webpage who have different screen resolutions, different widths and heights of their screens, and how big and how small it is. And on one computer, 750 pixels may be like as small as the word hello, or it might be as large as, you know, this line, or like the width of this whole, or the width of my whole screen, or even more, which makes it really hard to read. And so it's good to use table widths that aren't fixed, no fixed table widths. And so a little quirk with tables is that if you say wanted to have, you know, a title row, a title thing, you'd have to, you can't just do that where you have one TD, control save, and if you want it centered, it won't be centered. See, if we use the center tag, the center tag just centers text or mainly a table. I use it to center tables. Puts it on the center of the screen. Center justified, blah, 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 all that. And this is your lesson. See how it's centered in this column. Now, if you use the attribute COL span and you made it 2, that means this one column will be able to span, to quote, over these 2 columns right here. And so if we refresh our page, see how it's now centered? It's like a title. Let's make it bold. Remember, we have to nest elements. Control save, refresh, and now it's bold, and that's our web title. But say you wanted more of a sidebar to speak of. So let's get another column in there, TD hello /TD, and it was in our first row, and then /TD, and then like links home, and the BR tag is another empty tag, just like our trusty little thing there. You should have watched near the end of the last video to understand what that was about. But basically it means you don't need an ending tag, and you just put that special little slash there. And it puts it on the line directly below, like you see you have TR and then down there, unlike the paragraph where it has a little bit of space apart. So let's see, home, about, BR, break, page break, blog, and, you know, etc., etc. If you refresh that, see how it's still on the same row and it's not spanning these 2 rows? What you'd put down is, instead of COL span, you'd put down row span equals 2, and however many rows you wish to span. You see how it's across these 2 rows here? So isn't that interesting? So that's basically what you need for tables so far until we get into CSS, which is styling the pages, of course. And so in the next video I will explain actually CSS, cascading style sheets, styling the page, adding color and texture and background and all that good stuff. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye.